Good morning. My name is Bart Anderson, B-A-R-T-A-N-D-E-R-S-E-N, and I proudly serve as the Executive Director of AFSCME Council 5, representing 43,000 workers across the entire state, including our corrections officers, support staff, skilled labor, and professionals inside our facilities. And today we are sounding the alarm. The proposed state budget agreement that includes the closure of Stillwater Correctional Facility is not only short-sighted, it's downright dangerous, disruptive, and deeply disrespectful to the workers that keep the community safe and the inmates safe. Governor Walz, Speaker Demuth, Leader Hortman, and Majority Leader Murphy, this is your moment. We urge you to halt this reckless deal and remove the closure of Stillwater from this agreement immediately and come to the table with creative funding solutions rather than cuts and potential layoffs of public safety professionals. Because I would ask, have any of those leaders and lawmakers been in our facilities? Have they been inside the secured perimeter? Have they talked to our corrections officers and all of our staff that are going to be affected by a closure of a correctional facility? Because I have. I've been in every single one of our facilities, and I've talked to our members. I know what their concerns are, and I know what the threats are that they live with every day. And Commissioner Schnell, we ask you directly, when will you finally stand up and demand and defend the frontline workers that are your employees? Yesterday I received a call from the governor, both of his chiefs of staff, the commissioner of MMB, and a labor professional from MMB. Not one phone call from the commissioner. This decision was not made with the input of workers who risk their lives every single day inside the perimeter of our facilities. It was made behind closed doors without warning, without consultation, and without a care of the lives being affected. Let me be clear, this is about safety. This is about stability, and this is about people. Closing Stillwater throws hundreds of families into uncertainty. It creates chaos across the entire corrections system, and it tells every frontline worker in this state that they are expendable. There is no question that there is a need to invest in MCF Stillwater. There has been for decades. That is why our members have fought for decades to ensure bonding money is provided to our facilities. Maintenance and upgrades to workplace is normal. This Capitol is not brand new. The governor's mansion is not brand new. There's a brand new Senate building. There was capital investments to make sure all those facilities are up and running and upgraded and renovated and maintained. Why can't that happen with Stillwater? AFSCME Council 5 will not stand quietly while lawmakers use workers as bargaining chips. We demand a halt to this closure and to have a real public conversation about the future of corrections in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. My name is Dan Gorman. I'm a corrections officer at MCF Stillwater. I've worked at the facility for 20 years. Today, I speak not just for myself, but for nearly 400 AFSCME members who walk into the prison every day to do an incredibly difficult and dangerous job that most don't want to do. We've been left in the dark. No one from the Department of Corrections has given us an actual plan. No one has told us what's going to happen to our jobs, our families, or our futures. We don't know if we should be buying a home or selling one. We don't know if we will be forced to move our kids out of schools, or if we will be working in a facility hours away from where we live. This leads to incredible uncertainty for our most senior to our newest staff members. The chaos, confusion, and anger that our staff are feeling is very real and very raw. And to make it worse, a few years ago, the DOC even made upgrades to Stillwater. They invested in this facility, and now with no warning, we're told it's shutting down. What sense does that make? I've had coworkers in tears. I've had seasoned officers come to me saying they don't know how much more of this they can take. And I've had new officers questioning whether they made the right choice joining this department at all. To the elected officials, you don't get to claim to fight for public safety when you deliberately close a prison facility and throw public safety workers under the bus. You love to stand next to us when we have our uniforms on and take pictures with us and claim you support us. But this is the moment to have your vote match your words or social media post. Shame on you, elected officials, who may vote to close this facility down when you know for a fact there is no real plan in place for the workers, for the offenders, or for the community members. This is not how you treat people who dedicated their lives to public service. Commissioner Snell, we need leadership. We need someone to fight for us, not sit silently while lawmakers cut deals behind closed doors that destroy livelihoods. This is not just a workplace, it's a community. And right now our community is under attack. We will fight to keep Stillwater open, not just for ourselves, but for the safety of the entire state. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning. My name is Jeff Vars. I'm an officer at Oak Park Heights Correctional Facility. I'm the president of the Correctional Officer Group that is over 2,000 strong of correctional workers and support staff. What is happening here is unacceptable. Not just at Stillwater, but for the whole entire correction system. The closure of Stillwater is sending shockwaves through Stillwater and other facilities. Every facility is feeling this because we are under uncertainty. Moving hundreds of staff and offenders across the state with no clear-cut plan is dangerous, and that's not a strategy. Chaos and betrayal, confusion are what we're hearing when we get these phone calls. People are uncertain on what's going to happen. Our people deserve better. This isn't a budget line item. This is a public safety system. And you think you can pull one piece out of without consequences, you're wrong. Rather than looking at a tax break for corporations, we should be raising revenue from tax cheats to fund public safety. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Megan Dayton. I'm the president of MAPE. We represent caseworkers, other staff people in the Stillwater Correctional Facility and other correctional facilities across the state. I first want to acknowledge our union partners, including AFSCME, and I want to thank all of them for another opportunity to stand in solidarity together. We are here today because the decision to close the Stillwater prison is being made, again, behind closed doors, without engaging with the workers who are going to bear the responsibility for doing the work and the consequences of this unilateral decision. We are deeply disappointed that this decision was made unilaterally with no meaningful consultation from the administration or from legislative leadership. It disregards not just the people who work in these facilities, but also the broader public who deserves transparency and accountability in these big decisions. This move comes before the very study that was meant to inform a thoughtful and orderly closure of this facility. That study was supposed to guide legislative decision-making, not trail behind it. And now it's going to be conducted after incarcerated individuals are already being moved. That is not planning, that is scrambling. We have seen no bill language. We have seen no protections for staff. We have no clarity at all about staffing during this transition. We have no commitment on fair compensation or placement for workers who might not be able to transfer. So we at MAPE have some serious questions, and we have some serious concerns as well about the impacts that this is going to have on safety, and again, safety for both the employees and for the incarcerated people in these facilities, especially because other facilities are going to have to absorb increased populations. So we are here today to call on the administration and our legislative leaders to slow down, show your work, and treat workers as partners in the process, not as afterthoughts. Thank you.
I'll take questions.
Yeah, can someone confirm how many people worked there yesterday, Senator House? Bosley said 450 in her release. The Department of Corrections said there are 560 FTEs. That's like 100 plus jobs that are open, or can somebody offer clarity on that?
Yeah, I can. So we're looking at roughly, so when we talk about union members, we have roughly 450 AFSCME members. In total, there's 560 full-time positions at Stillwater, at MCF Stillwater.
Are all those positions filled of the 560?
No, oftentimes there's lag behind some of the positions. Obviously with promotions and that whole process, there's definitely a lag. So not very often are all of those positions filled at the same time.
There seemed to be allusions yesterday from a number of people that are kind of trying to paint this as, well, there's a group of people that are coming upon retirement age in the staffing that maybe that can equal this out. Do you buy that language?
No, I don't. Yes, there are people every year that are retiring. 560 people retiring over the next 4 years, I do not buy that, no.
Do you think the comments about deferred maintenance are overblown?
Slightly. I mean, you guys have probably seen some of the slideshows, some of the pictures. A lot of those pictures are taken in areas that people don't walk through on a regular basis, on a yearly basis. There are pictures in some of those slideshows that the commissioner has presented that was when we were doing work on those buildings. You'll see the brickwork that we were doing. You'll see half of the wall is down. That was a job that was done probably 5-6 years ago now, and that has been completed. There are things that need to be addressed. There are things that definitely need to be taken care of. But the further we kick the can down the road, the more expensive things become. And I think with budgets and the way things have been over the last couple of years, not addressing those over the last couple of years is a serious concern that we have as a group.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
I think some people call it deferred maintenance, but I would refer to it as an irresponsibility to support public service.
Mr. Anderson, obviously Stillwater, the conditions of it, the need for improvements, that's been a discussion for a long time. Do you have a viewpoint on why now, why this, Governor Wall says it felt like it was the politically right time because of the divided legislature. I just wonder if you have an insight into why do you think this happened right now?
Quite frankly, we don't know. We weren't part of any conversations about this being on the table as part of a global deal. We don't know where this came from or why it came now. Again, in Commissioner Schnell's comments and all the clips that I saw yesterday, it was all about costs and maintenance and renovations and what it would take to bring that facility up to a certain standard. Not once did he mention anything about the affected lives of closing that facility. So there's costs in everything. And if there's going to be an example of cost savings in this, I'd like to know where it is. Because if it's a phased out plan for 4 years, you're still gonna have to do all those maintenance activities for 4 years. So all that work is still there. Everything still has to happen as it does today. When the plumbing goes out at the governor's mansion, has to get fixed. Same thing at Stillwater or any facility. So.
Is there a part of this that's a larger conversation about a lack of investment in prison facilities throughout the state?
I think there should be.
Would you have that? Sorry, go ahead.
So just to be clear, you guys found out about it when the rest of us found out about this?
Yep. Shortly before the press conference started is when we were notified.
9:30 yesterday morning.
How does that make you feel that you found out just hours before we all did?
Once again, completely disrespected and out of the process. We've said this in a lot of different conferences and a lot of different events. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We were not at the table. You see what happened.
Schnell said there's room in other facilities. Is there, or would capacity need to be added for?
We would like to know where that space is. Dan, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so, we have roughly, our population is about 1,200 offenders. If there are 1,200 beds within the Minnesota Department of Corrections, we would like to see where those are, absolutely.
How do you think this will impact other facilities taking in more people if they're just quite frankly?
Personally, I feel it'll make other facilities more dangerous. Not a lot of people want to think that Stillwater is a way of life. Stillwater is a community, not just for the workers, but for the offender population as well. We are a level 4 facility. We house some of the most dangerous offenders in the state. You know, murder, assault, domestic assault, and CSC, those are our top 3 crimes that we have in Stillwater Prison today. Now you start sending those to other facilities, overpopulating those facilities, because again, we don't know where those 1,200, 1,250 beds are that the commissioner speaks of. You start overcrowding these other institutions, it makes it very dangerous for the inmate population and for the staff that work in those facilities.
Can I elaborate just I think what we've been told in the brief conversations that we have had is that part of this plan is reliant on MRRA, which is an early release program. So it's not just filling beds in other places, it's letting offenders out early. And that is part of how they think this plan will be successful.
How would you guys describe the current state of the prison? You kind of heard them say yesterday it's just not safe really anymore for the inmates and for staff.
I would like to know who is saying that, because they're not the ones that are working there. You know, are there dangers in working at the job? Absolutely. That's at every facility. You know, some speak of, you know, the safety and security. We have asked in the past for low-cost safety improvements, and they've been ignored. They have not been met. We've asked for radios to upgrade our communication system so we can communicate with one another. Falls on deaf ears. We don't want to invest the money into our communication systems. We've asked for fencing on our top 2 tiers so that the inmate population doesn't have an opportunity to either jump or get thrown off of those tiers, so they don't risk that fall. Again, those have gone ignored. We've asked for low-cost improvements to our facilities, and for years they have been ignored.
So in that way, when they start saying things like, oh, it's gonna cost $1.3 billion, it kind of paints a picture of this is an insurmountable problem. You're saying there are more targeted ways that you can keep a facility safe.
Correct.
Imagine like staff morale, like obviously isn't really great right now. Have you guys been given any indication if staff will be able to move to other facilities? I know they're probably not closed.
Yep, nope, we have not as of yet, and that is a process that if there was a plan in place to do these things, that we would be able to work through in order to make sure that the least amount of people are affected by this, whether that's allowing other people to work at other facilities. But again, when you start taking other people from the Stillwater facility and moving them into other facilities, you are now displacing other staff members. And that's just something department-wide. This, obviously, as a union and the solidarity, we're not looking to force other individuals out of a job just so we can keep ours. At the end of the day, those are conversations that need to be had. Those are long conversations that need to be had, something that's not going to happen overnight. That's why when we talk about needing a plan and being made aware of these things, which we were not, we could have avoided a lot of the rumors and a lot of things that are going to come in the next few weeks by having those answers before the questions are even asked.
Have you been given any indication on what the timeline looks like? Commissioner Schnell said there hasn't even been sort of a firm understanding of like when the first inmate will be moved, or when, I mean, they talk about 4 years, but it seems like they're going to try to start making this happen fairly quickly. Have they given you any idea?
They have not. Yesterday at 9:30, we were told that over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to reduce the population by half. And then in 4 years, we are going to shut the doors and be closed completely. Those are the only timelines we've been given. But we are still taking in offenders from other institutions, TRVs, everything like that. They're still coming into our facility to this day. So we have not been given direction as to how it is to move forward.
To Megan and Bart, this is now the second time in the last couple of months where I've covered a press conference where you've said that unions weren't at the table when a conversation was brought forward having to do with the the return to office procedure. How would you say relationships are right now with the governor and unions?
Not great. I think our entire mission as a union community, is to have a seat at the table. And a call 10, 15 minutes before a press conference about decisions that are going to impact our lives is not real partnership. I expect better from a party that represents us as labor, and I hope we can get back to that point.
Yeah, I think just adds to a straining relationship. You know, we've made it abundantly clear in the last meeting we had with the governor directly that we need to be a partner. If we're going to call ourselves partners, we need to be there. We need to have these conversations beforehand. I find it hard to believe that this chip that was put on the table at the 11th hour wasn't discussed thoroughly before it got put on the table. There had to have been very serious conversations about what could the impacts of this be. Did anybody think about that? Because if they would have asked us, we would have had a laundry list of concerns with doing something like this, so.
What do you guys think the long-term impact will be of closing this facility down?
Hard to say. It's very hard to say. I think public safety is of some concern. If MRRA and some of these programs are to go through and implement them immediately, you know, that was set up in order to make sure programming and things were done prior to the offender's release. If now those things are fast-tracked because we have a deadline of 4 years, I think public safety is a huge concern.
Something Chanel said yesterday is that like VSCs across the country are kind of downsizing and consolidating, and he said it was more cost-effective to consolidate and then build capacity at other facilities. Do you think that's an effective way to kind of run corrections?
I don't, and the only reason why I say that is because when you run facilities at a max capacity and you have individuals on top of each other, that is no way for anyone to live. So now when you go forward and you decide that maybe we have a couple empty beds here, a couple empty beds there, now we're going to fill them, how do you move that population around? You know, there are levels for a reason. There are some, you know, level 1s through all the way through level 5s. You know, and where do you put these individuals if bed space is limited to non-existent?
Can I add on to
Yep.
that? If the question is consolidating space in a Department of Corrections at the state level, we have chronically underfunded this agency for years. So we have no promises that in moving people to different facilities or consolidating, we're actually going to invest in those programs. It's really just, it appears to be a cost savings measure right now. And in order to consolidate effectively, to deliver programming effectively, to correct behavior, you have to invest in it. You have to spend money to rehabilitate people so that they can be functioning members of society again. And we have no guarantee that that's part of this plan.
Just in terms of the people who work there, they obviously probably shape their lives around their employment, where they live, where they raise their families. Even if they are moved, can you just talk about some of the impacts that you're hearing, or the questions that you're hearing from people that you work with?
Yeah, I mean, you know, uprooting, I mean, Stillwater, Oak Park Heights, Lino Lakes, they're the ones that are centrally located within the main area of Minnesota, within the city limits. Now, you start telling people that we don't have room at these institutions, and now they have to uproot their families to Moose Lake, Faribault, Shakopee, some of these areas that are outside the metro area. That's a big change. Either A, you're going to spend hours in your car driving to a new institution, which time away from your families, or B, you're going to uproot everything that you may have established. For me personally, over 20 years. For somebody, over 30 years, over 10 years, even 5 years. You have established that based on where it is you are working in your work location, thinking that, hey, this is going to be around at least until I can retire. Now, all of a sudden, without plan, without warning, without anything whatsoever, that carpet is just ripped out from underneath us. And now people are questioning whether or not they should stick around for that 4 years because the unknown is too much for them to handle. If we had something and we had direction where we could plan and figure this out prior to, had any information or partnership like we talked about earlier, then we could have at least informed some individuals that this was a possibility. but there was nothing.
How do you think it'll impact, inmates? I know some people, they like where they are, they don't want to move. How do you think just overall?
Negatively, I really do. Like I said earlier, Stillwater is a way of life, not just to the officers, but to the offenders as well. There have been many offenders that have made peace with their situations. There have been many offenders that understand that this is the rest of their lives, and they like doing their time at Stillwater. We have individuals that get shipped elsewhere that want to know how it is they can come back to Stillwater, want to know how it is they can stay there before they're even shipped out from Stillwater. It is a way of life. It is a community in there, and that has been established over, well over 100 years, not just in the 20 years that I've been there, so.
All right, thank you. Is everybody standing back there, employees at Stillwater? Is that right? I walked in a little late, I don't know if that was.
So we have some MAPE representatives, we have officers, we have our lieutenants, MMA, and then AFSCME staff. Yep.
Did you notice you say and spell your first and last name?
Me?
Anyone who-
Okay, sorry, Dan Gorman, D-A-N-G-O-R-M-A-N.
Bart, you already did, right?
Yeah.
Megan Dayton, Megandayton.
Jeff Vars, Jeff, V as in Victor, ARS.